So you clicked on this video because you want to know the 5 biggest mistakes that buyers make. Well, stay tuned because I'm going to break it down for you. My name is Laura Griffin. I'm a top-selling real estate agent in the Loudoun County area and work for Loudoun Living at Pearson Smith Realty. I'm also known as the Loudoun Mom. I run a top, very popular moms group in Loudoun County, all about living here in Loudoun. And I'm going to talk today about the 5 biggest mistakes that buyers make. As a realtor, I see them all the time, so I'm going to break it down for you so you don't make these same mistakes. Number 1 is letting the seller make repairs. So at a home inspection, you've gone over the items that you want to have the seller repair or you want corrected when you're purchasing the home, but don't have the seller make the repairs. And why? Get a credit. The reason why is the seller is not going to maybe have your best interest at heart. They're going to pick their own contractors. They may not pick the one with the best warranties and things like that. So take the control back. Get a credit for what you think the value will be for those items. And then after closing, hire your own contractors. Get better favorable terms, sometimes better warranties. And maybe the repair that the seller is going to do, maybe not something you want to have done that way. Maybe you want to get something upgraded and pay just a little bit more and get like a better quality of a product. So always ask for a credit. I always recommend this versus having the seller do it. The other reason I also ask this is that sometimes it may not get done in time and it could hold up closing. Maybe the contractor had an issue with getting something. So by saving the time and by getting it done after the fact and just getting the credit, a lot of times you're not going to have any troubles with closing on time and you can get it done by the contractor that you select. Number 2 is a big one because I've personally experienced this myself, is do the walkthrough before closing. You don't sign the paperwork until you've physically seen and walked the house. Now here in Virginia, you can do a walkthrough anytime the 7 days prior to closing, but I always recommend do one ahead of time, but also do one the day of closing. And why? Because you never know what has happened from the time the seller's moved out to the time you sign the papers. So you want to just go through. Has anything leaked overnight? Maybe the seller moved out the night before. You want to make sure that everything's in working order before you sign on the dotted line, because once you sign on the dotted line, the house is yours. Also make sure, has the seller taken any items from the house? I've had this personally where the seller took down a whole bunch of ceiling fans that were part of the contract, or they took other things out of the house that were part of the contract. And, we're scrambling and trying to do those things. But by doing the walkthrough ahead of time, you know that there might be an issue and we can go back to the seller, get a credit for something that might be wrong, delay closing until something gets repaired. So always do the walkthrough. What I typically do is say your closing's at 10 a.m. We'll go do the walkthrough about 8:39. Do the walkthrough, drive to closing, you sign the papers, you get the keys. The house is yours. But make sure you do that walkthrough before you sign on the dotted line. Number 3 is keep your contingencies. I know we were in a crazy spring market this last spring, and things have kind of changed a little bit. We've gone from a seller's market where people were waiving every contingency to now more of a buyer's market, or some people even say more of a neutral market. So keep your contingencies. Do your home inspection. Keep your financing contingencies, keep your appraisal contingencies if you can. And the reason why is those are your protections, right? So when you do a contract and you ratify, you turn in your earnest money deposit or your EMD, that could be 1 to 5% of the purchase price, right? And you don't want to leave that money on the line. The contingencies are there to protect you. So do your home inspections, keep your financing contingencies, and keep your appraisal contingencies. Because at the end of the day, they're there to protect you and to protect your earnest money deposit, which is held typically by a title company here in Virginia. Number 4 is know if it's a flip or a flop that you're buying. So we all know what's a good flip and what's a bad flip. On a bad flip, they might have cut some corners and there might be some things that you're gonna have to fix after the fact that weren't done right. So know if you're buying a flip. And if it's a flip, not all flips are created equal. There are some flips out there that the companies do an amazing job, and I've seen some of these and the work is top notch. I've seen some that are not quite as good. So know the telltale signs if it's a flip and know the quality of the work behind it. But know that sometimes with flips, the corners may have been cut and that you may need to fix some things after the fact. So kind of always have that in the back of your mind because I know a lot of times in our area, buyers will gravitate towards home because they're turnkey, they're ready. Maybe the flipper painted it, put new carpet, renovated a few of the spaces, and it looks so much nicer than a house that's maybe a little outdated or needs some paint or needs some love and some new carpet. But at the end of the day, it may not be a better value and it may not be a better deal for you. So definitely compare apples to apples when you're looking at houses. Is a flip going to be a good deal for you, or maybe it's a flop and you don't want to pass on that house and buy something and put a little bit of work into it yourself to make it the home that you want? And number 5 of the biggest mistakes that buyers make is doing dual agency. I know, a lot of times people think it's a really good deal to have the seller's agent represent the buyer. It's not always a good idea. That seller's agent has a fiduciary duty to the seller and to work in their best interest. But who has your best interest as the buyer at heart? It's not going to be that agent. They have that duty to that seller. They know everything about the seller. They've been working together sometimes for weeks, days, maybe even months. So they really know each other, and they're not going to have your best interest at heart. As a buyer, you need someone in your corner to protect you and to have your best interest at heart, especially when you're dealing with contracts. You're talking about home inspection negotiation. What if the appraisal comes in low? What if there's a financing issue? What if the things get delayed because there's an issue with closing, or there was something on title that we didn't know and we have to work with the seller to get those taken care of? You want someone in your corner to back you up and to be your protector basically in this contract and walk you through the steps. Whether you've bought in one house or 100 homes in your lifetime, you always need that person in your corner. And I'm going to say the list agent, when I'm a list agent, I have my sellers at heart and I'm doing the best I can to get the most money for their home and get it sold in the quickest amount of time. As a buyer's agent, they're not going to have that in mind. They're going to be working for the seller. So have someone in your corner who's going to protect you and to do everything that they can to make sure that the transaction goes smooth and that your best interests are taken care of. So what are the top 5 mistakes that buyers make? It's this: making the seller do repairs on the home versus getting a credit, not doing the walkthrough the day of closing, not keeping their contingencies, buying a flip that turns out to be a flop, and doing dual agency with the list agent. So when you're buying a house, it's important to avoid these mistakes. If you have any questions about buying or selling a home here in the Loudoun County or Northern Virginia area, I'd love to be a resource for you. Call me at the number above or email me here. And stay tuned because we're gonna have a lot more videos coming out all about buying and selling homes in Loudoun County and the Northern Virginia area.